Harper Audio presents The Woman Who Met Her Match by Fiona Gibson, read by Emma Gregory. Prologue. The summer of 1986. "It'll be good for you," Mum announced. "You'll improve your French, see a whole different side of life. You don't want to be stuck in boring old Yorkshire all summer, do you?" She was applying her makeup at her dressing-table mirror, 2 coats of spidery black mascara, frosted peach lips, and a flash of apricot blusher across each cheek. She closed her small, tight mouth and swivelled round on the stool to face me. "You might even meet a nice French boy. Oh, I hope so, Lorrie. Just think, your first boyfriend. That's what's meant to happen on a French exchange." She turned back to her mirror, brushing on bronzer until her face took on a shimmery metallic hue. At 16 years old, I knew that people only said, "It'll be good for you," when it was something you didn't want to do. And this was a prime example. I didn't want a French boyfriend. I had never been out with anyone in Yorkshire. No one had even shown any interest in kissing me, and I doubted that my arrival in a foreign country would suddenly heighten my allure. I didn't even want to go to France, especially not to a stranger's house. My French was pretty limited. I was fairly confident I could buy a cauliflower or report the presence of cockroaches in my hotel room, but as for living in a French family's flat for an entire month... I was fully prepared for no one to understand a single word I said. Although I had tried to convince Mum that I'd learned just as much by studying my textbooks at home, she wouldn't listen. Once she had made up her mind, that was that. Firm arrangements were made, my terrible passport picture taken in a photo booth, with my hair scraped back so I looked like a potato, and travel tickets booked. Clearly, there was no point in arguing. There were many other reasons why the thought of going to France scared me. I was to fly there, despite having never been on an aeroplane before. In fact, I had never been on any mode of transport where a talk on safety procedures was required. French girls were thin and sexy, and I was neither of those things. French people kissed on both cheeks just to say hello, i.e. much potential for humiliation. It was all about sex. Everything was. Even their nouns were either masculine or feminine. In fact, I knew from occasional glimpses of French films that everyone was always snogging the face off each other. So what would I do while all that was going on? I would take photos of churches and force myself to buy things in shops. "Bonjour, un chou-fleur, s'il vous plaît. Madame? Merci, au revoir." I would trot back to my pen pal's flat with my cauliflower in a basket and sit and write postcards home. In my own bedroom, which smelt of the tinned meat pie Mum had heated up earlier, I dropped a selection of cheap biros into my suitcase, wishing I was at least travelling with someone. However, despite Mum's insistence on using the term French exchange, implying a load of British kids all singing excitedly on a coach, it was just me, being packed off to a stranger's place, alone. It had all started when we were allocated pen pals through school, and I'd ended up with a terse-sounding Valerie Rousseau. Our correspondence so far had been rather basic. "What is your favourite sport?" "Le ping-pong," I lied, not actually having one. Next thing I knew, Mum was on the phone to Valerie's mother, wafting her cigarette and putting on her Penelope Keith voice, with the odd French word flung in. "Merci, Mrs. Rousseau. Lorrie is très excited to come and visit chez vous." And that was that. The trip was arranged. "Well, she sounded very nice," Mum announced. "Not that she speaks much English, but you'll be fine." I should also point out that my destination wasn't Paris. It wasn't even the Côte d'Azur, which I'd at least heard of. I was travelling alone to somewhere called the Massif Central, which sounded like an ugly office block with an enormous road system around it. For all we knew, Valerie's parents could have been alcoholics or child molesters, but this was the 80s and no one really worried back then. I zipped up my suitcase and studied the instructions Mum had hammered out on her manual typewriter. 1. Overnight coach to London Victoria.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?